Let's see. As we are taking testimony from Mr. Eugene Collins, we're going to ask Emily Dixon and let me see,
Julie Ford, I think.
Julie Floyd to come to the table, please. Thank you. And they're from the auditor's office.
Thank you, Senator Barrow. Senator
Thank you.
Mizell.
Introduce yourself. I know who you are. Thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Eugene Collins. I'm the president of the Baton Rouge branch of the NAACP. I have been working alongside Ms. Porter, who showed up in Baton Rouge one night looking for help. I want to say this here. And as I sat here this morning, I listened to the department head of the Department of Children and Family Services tell us what her job was not. I couldn't help but think back to our mission statement, which is we fight race-based discrimination. But when a person shows up in the middle of the night saying that they have a kid that's being sex trafficked, although I didn't have the resources to assign somebody to look into such a case because I didn't have anybody with that background, I decided to look into it myself because that's what you should do in a situation like that. In addition to that, in sitting with Ms. Porter, I found that Ms. Porter had made complaint after complaint after complaint after complaint for a number of months, and none of those complaints had been sustained. Not one complaint was sustained until I decided to put Ms. Porter on my radio show one Sunday. And then after that, that complaint was sustained. Some short time later, Mr. John Mack was arrested as a result of that complaint Ms. Porter had been trying to file for months. Mr. John Mack is the uncle of one of your colleagues. I have sent you guys, with some of y'all, an investigative document totaling somewhat 40 pages of all of our findings that were not looked at or overlooked since 2015. This young lady had been trying to be heard, trying to have her voice heard, trying to have this situation looked into, and nobody did. They wouldn't even take the complaint. So when someone sits here and says that it's not their job to be an arresting agency, but it is their job to be an agency that accepts the complaint, and that did not happen in this process whatsoever. Just last week, there was an incident of alleged sexual abuse at a local school, and that person called to file a complaint with DCFS, and they were told that they could not handle that situation. I have the recording, which I can forward to you this body if needed. This is a systematic failure that needs to be monitored at a greater level, because we can't sit here and talk about what our job isn't when kids are being sex trafficked. And we can no longer say that Ms. Porter isn't right because arrests have started being made. This was a failure, and somebody should be held accountable for it. Thank you.
Don't move. Come, Senator Jackson.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question. I'm not familiar with this, so I'm going to ask some keen questions.
Yes,
You're
ma'am.
saying in the state of Louisiana, a child reported being sexually abused.
Yes, ma'am. That child had a forensic interview, as well as her older sister had a forensic interview in 2015. I'm not sure on the second child's interview, but I know the older sister's interview was consistent.
So I'm trying to, yeah, it's my point. The child had a forensic interview.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, which parish is this in?
The original report was actually made in Orleans Parish
The child was living in Orleans Parish?
at the time. That report moved to Livingston Parish,
Okay.
where a detective testified a few weeks ago in court that although they had the case, some information was not made readily available to them, and they had that case in their possession since 2019. Mr. John Mack, who is now behind bars for this incident, also had a very similar incident in 2010, 2011, where he allegedly assaulted a woman after blocking her car in the middle of a road. Again, the uncle of one of your colleagues.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask him some keen questions because I want to know.
Yes, ma'am.
What? No, I understand he's in jail, but I'm trying to figure out the people that help. So, law enforcement. I mean, I'm just being honest. if it's law enforcement agents, let's talk about it because this is crazy. So you're telling me it was reported in Orleans?
It was reported in Orleans. It was then transferred to Livingston Parish.
Why was it transferred? Did the child live in Livingston Parish?
Oh, your guess on that would be as good as mine.
Well, I'm asking, are you aware? Because I know you had time with this family. You said,
Yes, ma'am.
Did the child live in Livingston Parish?
So the child did live in Livingston Parish at a point.
Yeah. They can come together because this is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
No, Grimion. State Police, Grimion.
And maybe they can't testify on ongoing investigation, but
Maybe there's some key things he can speak to because it is an ongoing investigation that certainly has willfully fallen short of the proper protocols, in my opinion, that needed to take place.
yeah, let's talk about protocol. This was first reported to who? Yes,
You're asking,
yes,
okay,
yes.
Chad Grimion from Louisiana State Police. Again, as you mentioned, I can't get into the specifics of a ongoing criminal investigation that we are part of. What I can tell you is we were made aware of an investigation, and we worked an investigation concerning a case related to this in Jefferson Parish.
Okay. So my question is this. So you won't get into particulars. When you found this out, are you also not only investigating the perpetrator, but any law enforcement agent or any agent who did not or failed to follow through?
We are not investigating a law enforcement agency or agent who failed to investigate. We are working collectively with law enforcement and other parishes as part of a joint investigation concerning this case.
What I'm gonna ask why. If a child has had 7 forensic interviews, that means forensic wise, law enforcement had to be involved 7 times.
Right.
And my question is going to be, why hasn't, I understand you're investigating the nature of the perpetrator who's been arrested, but why has there not been and we talk about this with police brutality, but I'm talking about it with everything. You know me.
Yes, ma'am.
Why are those law enforcement agents not being investigated for failure to follow through or whatever? This is one of the times, I mean, I'm just being honest and I'm stumbling because I'm baffled. Why? If 7 forensic investigations, why are we not investigating each agency that it was reported to?
Senator Jackson, the agency that was investigating the complaint continued to investigate the complaint.
Through 7 forensic interviews? I mean, I'm just going to be real because when I hear 7, I'm like, who continues through 7 forensic interviews to investigate? In order to cross a threshold to get to a second one, something red flag has to appear, right? Then you get to a third one, there has to be some red flags to because I do this.
I understand, Senator. I can tell you.
At you, I know you weren't a part of it, but I'm
right, and I was not a part of it. I was a part, or my agency and my unit was a part of the investigation in Jefferson Parish. Collectively, we worked together with the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office, and without going into specifics of that, I think an arrest was made on behalf of, or in Livingston Parish concerning this matter maybe 2 weeks ago, if memory serves me right.
It was about a month ago.
So, and I'm asking,
Sure.
but I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm going to say it on the record because I want to be absolved once I hear something like this. Every person that investigated this matter, where it went through 7 investigations, every agency needs to be investigated for their protocol and their procedure and how they dropped the ball. That's because I don't want to keep asking what the obvious is.
Yeah.
And who does that? Does the Attorney General has the authority? Because if so, I'm going to make a call to him. Who has the authority to go back and look at this lengthy investigation where the child was left in that situation? Who has the authority?
I can't answer that. I don't know who would be responsible for that. I can tell you that as a supervisor of the Special Victims Unit of the Louisiana State Police, the matter in which we investigated was thoroughly and accurately investigated. without a doubt.
So this investigation is the one that's currently going on.
Yes, ma'am. We currently have an investigation that is ongoing.
You weren't a part of the investigations that involved almost 7 forensic interviews before the child voice was heard.
The Louisiana State Police was not involved in that investigation initially.
So I don't know who it is. I'm gonna call the Attorney General, and I respect your investigation part of it, but you're investigating the actual matter of child abuse. I venture to say, and I'm going to talk to our Attorney General, that someone needs to be investigating the agencies who failed to report this.
And it seems like, Senator, that there is no one that's really the go-to person, and therefore that lacks the level of accountability. Unfortunately, state police right now, there's nothing in the law, which is something we need to address, that allows them to investigate another law enforcement agency when they have a case under investigation.
I thought it was.
Well,
There's some kind of task force or something that you could, but is that only on police brutality? Is there?
there was an ongoing investigation that a sheriff's office was investigating. We, the state police, was investigating a separate incident that occurred in Jefferson Parish, and that's where our investigation focused at, because Livingston Parish was investigating their particular case involving this.
But when they are investigating, you guys cannot investigate them while they have the investigation open. Is that my understanding?
I mean, they have an open investigation, and the sheriff is the chief law enforcement official in a parish, and they have an open investigation. So they are the ones that are investigating. I mean, we are not going to come in and take over an investigation in Livingston Parish.
No, I understand.
Or in East Baton Rouge, or in Rapides, Caddo, or anywhere.
I understand that. I'm not talking about the investigation of the molestation. I'm asking who in this state, whether it be state police, attorney general, when someone files a complaint, has a complaint been filed against these departments?
Yes, ma'am. So, and there's a little bit to add to it. Livingston Parish actually closed the investigation. The investigation was just reopened after some media came out recently. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, the sheriff in Washington Parish also received a complaint from Ms. Porter. The sheriff in Washington Parish, as a result, decided to schedule a visit with the supposed man that was trafficking her, John Mack, the uncle of one of your colleagues, to come to her facility to visit the child that he was trafficking.
He scheduled what? I'm sorry.
A visit with the child.
So I'm about to ask this.
And we gonna probably have to.
Yeah,
we're going to probably have to take some of this off of the record. Yeah, because it is still open. And so, Senator Mizell, I have us now where everybody's been added in. Senator Mizell,
I'll be
we'll
really
jump
quick,
in real quick.
and I'm going to take it to the next step, okay? Because your outrage I've felt for months.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is crazy.
But that's the whole idea of having the auditor's report, because this whole situation is a study in what not should be done. From the care of her, from the whole process, the confusion with, I love the state police, but I'm saying there's been layers and layers of head scratching on this. So we have an opportunity now, my lady friends, to look at what we can do to make sure no other victim ever has to go through this. Because on top of what you're feeling, Senator Jackson, this child had all those forensic interviews before she ever got any support.
I think, and that's my concern, that nobody's investigating the people that hit it.
So we're going to fix that. Can we agree?
Therein lies the
Yeah,
bigger
I
problem
wanna
that we really began to start talking about early on. That hopefully, prayerfully, that this never happens again, because what happened in this situation was the utmost travesty that ever could happen to anybody, any child, with all of the right protocols supposedly in place.
And I'm not saying the state police do. Let me get on the record. I don't know a lot about this, so I'm not saying that you did anything wrong. I understand you were not the investigating agency, and I'm just So I'll finish up with this because y'all know I'm real concerned. This is my first, right?
Yeah, I know.
When a complaint is made on a law enforcement agency, who investigates that complaint? Since a complaint was made, who did you make the complaint with?
Ms. Porter alerted state police to all of the different agencies that she had went through, and that was done about 3 months ago.
So you filed the complaint with the state police.
I started reaching out to everybody when she started revealing to us. We went to multiple law enforcement entities, started with Washington Parish. I've made a report to the FBI.
Speak a little bit closer into the mic. Bit closer into the mic,
I reached
please.
out to once I got contacted by the sheriff in my area who asked me could the rapist come and visit the child,
In what's your
alleged
area?
rapist, Washington Parish. Like we ran into so many different barriers, like nobody was listening. And at this time, Mr. John Mack was coming to the facility with the child's biological mother and trying to gain access to her. It wasn't until we had a meeting with DCFS that we had a Zoom meeting, because the child had told DCFS that if she's forced to return to that environment, that she would just die in peace and kill herself. And at that time, we made a meeting with DCFS via Zoom, begging and pleading them to intervene, because at this point, we have reported more than 10, 12 times to get some help, because every time her biological mother, who we know is the person that was trafficking her and allowing her to be abused by Mr. Mack, they're coming to the facility, and we're trying to do the right thing by doing the reports. So every time they come to get her, we're supposed to give them to her. And so we literally had to be put in a position to where ethically and morally we're like, no, you can't, we're not gonna do this. And so we would have to run them off from our facility. We would call law enforcement to come. Washington Parish sheriffs have had to escort him off the property several times. And it just got to the point to where after the DCFS Zoom call that we had, they said Livingston Parish had closed the case, that the FBI was not involved. It was Mr. Craig Miller on this Zoom call, and a few other people in the investigations department of DCFS, and it was Kathy Cusimo from Children's Advocacy Center in Hammond, who has been a very big advocate for our girl, and she even begged him, please, she begged them, look at her interviews. I've met her, I've looked at her interviews, her and her sister, because she wasn't the original cry out victim, and she was not. And we had, it was at that meeting that they told us DCFS could not get involved, that when she's to be discharged from our facility, that she is to go back to her family. And I think that is when desperation kicked in for us, because we had looked this child in the face and said we were going to protect you. And that's how I ended up, the help didn't come until I contacted Governor Edwards' office at the child trafficking office. And it was like my last ditch effort. I mean, this is the night before, after the man is at our window with flashlights looking in the windows.
So wait, you went through several law enforcement entities.
3.
FBI. Mm-hmm. You contacted the state police, or once you contacted Governor Edwards?
Mm-hmm. That's when state police got involved.
So I'm gonna put it in a way where you don't breach any confidentiality. A report has been made that 3 law enforcement agencies in this state covered up, for lack of a better word, or did not fully investigate a sex trafficking issue. Is your department the correct department to investigate those 3 law enforcement agencies?
If a report was made, I am not aware that a report was made in the way that you're phrasing that to us. Okay. I can tell you this. In working with the FBI on this, it was investigated by them, and there was not a federal nexus for them.
Right, I understand the federal.
That.
So this is the question.
I want to be on the record to say that, though, because
Yeah.
people think that just because they're involved,
it's not sex trafficking. If you traffic them across state lines, feds come in. Feds only have certain jurisdiction. Otherwise, it lies within the parish jurisdiction or the state police.
That's correct.
So, question, because we don't know if a report was made. Are you the correct entity if this young lady, on behalf of those children, want to file a report against the 3 agencies? Do they file it with you to be investigated? Because I understand you're investigating the actual crime itself, but I think there are other crimes here.
And if there is, and they wish to file a complaint with us, certainly they can. We have a detective section that does handle investigations of that sort.
And you do handle investigations of other agencies?
We do, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is the thing that I'm asking. I am asking that you, since we're questionable on, you filed the report for the child. If you are the proper person, right, I'm thinking, and when you walk out of here today, you find out where to go file a report against those 3 agencies. And I can stand up at any day. Maybe, and I'm not saying they did anything wrong, but I think we're all going to be left with the question of what happened until state policing properly investigates all of it. So I understand what right now you're dealing with investigation with the gentleman I just received who got arrested, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to see a total investigation into this matter. And he has just said on the record that they do investigate those matters. I think a report has to be filed, and this is just from what I'm hearing, to investigate it all. If you, from what your testimony has been today, the 2 of you, that you feel like 3 different agencies failed to investigate this matter.
And we've went on record with the state police and saying that
Multiple times.
multiple times.
And so is there a separate report that has to be filed for you all to trigger an investigation on the former investigations that didn't seem to take place?
I'm say that again?
I know, right? Is there a special report that has to be filed if they're reporting that 3 agencies had this matter and covered it up or did not properly investigate it?
I'm not sure that there's a special report, Senator. I do not know of any report that's been lodged with the state police involving law enforcement agents that have failed to investigate this.
So how do we lodge that complaint? How do they? So we'll have it on the record and make sure it's filed today. And I'm very serious about this because this is ugly. Like, you keep taking a child back into a situation. This is ugly. So where do they go if they want to leave here now and go file those complaints? Specifically complaints of the agencies, against the agencies. Where do they go?
Louisiana State Police at 7901 Independence Boulevard, Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
And who do they ask for?
The captain is...
Because I'm about clearing stuff up. I just don't like...
She's the new
we just had a range of promotions.
Yeah.
Linda Murphy with State Police.
Speaking to the mic.
I love to
Belinda
see
Murphy
women in
with
law
State
enforcement.
Introduce yourself.
Captain Belinda Murphy with Louisiana State Police, the commander over the Special Victims Unit. If they want to go to the detective section,
Speak
there
into the
is
mic.
Captain Pat Bradley is in Baton Rouge, and he is over all of Region 1. And if it's on the North Shore, if you're saying that it was in
I think they said New
Washington.
Orleans or
Okay,
Washington.
so
They've
he
named
will
the
have
number.
all of the North Shore and Orleans Parish. So he would be the captain that would be the commander over the Detectives Bureau that could take that complaint for you.
Now, let's say there's someone involved that's not in Region 1. Will he pass it on to the region? Let's say there's a law enforcement agency that's not in
And
Region
he would
1.
likely want to keep it all together as,
Right.
as a single investigation. And his officers, his detectives, could travel anywhere in the state.
Now, my request doesn't say I think the sheriff of Washington Parish did anything wrong. I don't know about this case, so let me put that on the record. But I do know that some serious allegations have been made. And I know past arresting the gentleman that actually perpetrated the sex trafficking, to the extent that if what I'm hearing is true, that 7 forensic interviews took place. And I know sometimes you bring a child back in, if it went through 3 different departments and now there's arrests being made, that was some substantiated from the first complaint.
And Senator
No,
Jackson,
he didn't start after she complained.
I did want to clear up, as you had asked earlier, you were asking, would we go in and just take an investigation away from a sheriff? We have to be asked to come in. If they have an investigation, we can't just go in and take an
By whom?
investigation over. By that sheriff. Now, if someone is making a complaint against that entity, that's different. But if a sheriff's office and there's no complaint lodged against that agency, we can't just go in and say, okay, we're going to take over your investigation. We have to be invited in. Now, this makes it different if you're saying you're making a complaint against the agency failing to do something, or a malfeasance deal where they knew something was happening and they did nothing to stop
I am
it.
asking you sincerely, not for a bounty hunt purpose. I don't know who was right and wrong in this. I don't know if the sheriff even knew who took it in his office and what they didn't or didn't do with it. Because I always say that, we're away from our offices all day right now. Someone could walk in our office and it never gets to our hand. And we all know that. We've dealt with that before, maybe not on the serious nature, but my constituents see me out in Super One and Walmart and say, I called you 10 days ago. And you're checking your email, you're checking everything. You're like, no, you didn't call me. Then you go and sit at your assistant's desk and you're flipping through papers and you start seeing stuff. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that from what I'm hearing and what I just tried to briefly read, an investigation into the perpetrator is not enough.
Yeah. And Senator Jackson, to add on to that, not only was the 7 forensic interviews not paid attention to, there were also 12 complaints lodged by Ms. Porter to DCFS that were not sustained. And we know they should have been sustained as of today because Mr. John Mack, the uncle of one of your colleagues, was arrested.
You keep saying that. I'm trying not to get to that point.
Yes, ma'am.
Listen, because I want to be fair to everyone. No, y'all stop. Y'all know how I am, right? Okay. So I'm going to say this, and DCFS knows I love and support them. And it's going to be hard for me to say. But I'm always fair and equitable in what I do. You lodge 12 complaints against them. When you go to the state police, you talk about that too. Now, and I love you guys. But we can't play with a child like that. And I'm not saying DCF played with it. Maybe when you called the law enforcement agencies, they didn't give you anything. But that even perpetuates more that somewhere in this there was a cover-up. And we need to know who DCFS talked to at these agencies that didn't give you what you needed. Because I'm assuming with DCFS, the way they've been vigilant in sex trafficking, that something happened to that sort. I'm prayerful and hoping, because I know you guys. I've worked with you. But that even matters. And so put it in there. Because somewhere, someone was hiding information. And I think those 12 calls to DCFS, the 12 complaints, knowing, state police knowing who you called each time and what information you received is going to be just as important as the contact with those agencies. So is there anybody else you reported to and they didn't listen?
No, ma'am, but I can send you the 40-page investigative document that we have. I'll email it to you. Yes, ma'am.
And that's my ask of you. And I know you're going to do the right thing. I do.
Absolutely.
But if it hasn't been a formal complaint filed on that matter, it needs to be. Mm-hmm. And I'm just grateful that the governor that I supported, and it's no political, this is just truthful, wife has the foresight to start a sexual trafficking task force that when it hit their office, there was somewhere for it to go finally. Because I'd be telling you to investigate him too, and I love him. I'm just telling you because it's a child.
Yeah.
And it's not right. And over again, this child was screaming for help. Her sister, you say, screamed for help?
She's been reporting this for over a decade.
Yeah, so 10 years of these children being sexually abused, law enforcement hearing about it, reports being filed. You could have saved the second child for never going through this had someone sent it to you guys. So when you look at it, you got one child over a decade, right? Then her little sister comes along and starts being abused, is what I'm assuming, right?
The other way around, the older sister first and then the little sister, but the older sister was taken out of the home. The little sister was still left in the environment.
Wait, hold up. So,
Yeah.
Because I'm going to try to grasp this. Mm-hmm. There was enough substantiation that the older sister had been abused.
She ended up going to stay with her dad. The little sister was left with the family, and access to Mr. Mack continued. I also want you all to know that this child, from day one, me meeting her, she said nothing is going to be done.
Wow.
She's now angry with me because we've gotten so involved that she feels like we're all in danger because some people are too powerful to be touched.
So who investigates DCFS? Because we're going to need their records to know who they contacted. Or do you not investigate DC? Because I want to take them on the right path. Do you not investigate?
Louisiana State Police will investigate a complaint that is lodged against an entity, but what we need to do is figure out if it's the Attorney General's office that would be the better agency, or Louisiana State Police, or we could work it jointly.
I want to see it jointly. And I'll tell you why. This is 10 years and a decade worth of foolishness. While a child was left in a home and abused. And maybe there are other cases out here, but this is the only one that came before us today. And I think we have a fiduciary duty in what we do for our constituents every day to see this thing through. And maybe in the grasp of what's happening and the investigation being conducted, we'll hear about others. But this young lady, and I'm sorry, I cannot remember your name, because I'm telling you, my mind is just out of it right now. Mrs. Porter said that every time she came, it was like they were working together. And she's talking about from years ago, and then we're sitting here in a case where people have been working together. I don't think anybody ignores that anymore. And I just want to, and I know I'm long-winded because y'all knowing about this, my mind is blown. You know, because you hear testimony from Ms. Porter that everyone worked together every time she was arrested, every time she came in contact with anyone. That was what, 15 years ago maybe? About 10 years ago. Now we're sitting here and we're fast forwarding to today, and they're saying everyone worked together. I can tell you why trafficking is bad in Louisiana, because it's the climate.
Yes, you're right.
It's the climate.
It is.
It's the climate that happened at LSU. It's the climate that happened here. It's the climate that girls are being ignored, whether they're 54, 34, 24, or 14, or 4. Women in Louisiana are being ignored. And maybe not by the people in this room. I dare not say that, because I know each of you in some capacity have worked hard. But somewhere this has become the acceptable thing, status quo, to protect men who violate women of all ages. That I've sit through too many committees. It is just the bottom line. It is the acceptable status quo to protect men who violate women.
Yeah.
So if you want to do it, I guess the thing is, come on to Louisiana. Because that's what we're screaming when I sat through the LSU committee hearings. Thank God for a new president, right? And you're sitting through this hearing. It is the continuous pattern. I thought it was, college students and it was wrong. But now I'm hearing it's 9 and 10-year-olds. Where law enforcement is, and younger, where law enforcement is mishandling complaints. And look, I don't want to address my colleague. I don't know if my colleague knew anything. Let me say this to you. I don't know everything my family members are doing. Besides my immediate, and I'm not taking up for them. I'm just telling you, maybe not. But besides I go home, you can go home with your child and I know they're a Unabomber now. And I always tell people that. So I don't ever go and, I'm not being funny. Think about it. The parents of the children that went and shot up schools across this country didn't know that their kids were going to shoot up schools that day, nor that they ever thought of it. You can lay next to somebody in bed every night and not realize that he or she is molesting your child. It happens. But I do know, and that's why I'm not going to address and not being disrespected comments about my colleague, because he didn't live in a house with this man. I'm not saying he knew or didn't know, but you can live in a house with somebody every day and not know. You really can. You can. So I'm saying that because those allegations are out there, and if this man was arrested, something from 10 years of a decade or something, and somebody else another child being taken out of home, there's some substantiation that something was ignored. And instead of letting those people keep working in law enforcement, and I can say this, if one of my colleagues did, if I did, call us up on it, investigate it. You know what I mean? We have to get to that point, because this friendship deal in Louisiana with law enforcement and others ignoring stuff of women being abused is getting out of hand. We're here constantly. We've been at this for, a year and a half?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even
No, actually, it has not been a year and a half.
Complaint
I take
with a
that back.
victim, we are going to investigate it fully. And it doesn't matter if it's a policeman. It doesn't matter if it's a legislator. It doesn't matter if it's a politician. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
And I'm not saying
And I don't know the specifics of this
Right.
case. This is the first time I'm hearing it as well. And I don't know who in Louisiana State Police, if you did make a complaint, who
Well,
the
she
complaint
said
was
she
made
didn't.
to?
She
Okay,
said,
and that's,
yeah.
We
so
did.
who did you speak with?
When we did, when we went to the Children's Advocacy Center, so after I met with Senator Mizell, I left, came to Baton Rouge. We met with, that's when I reached out to Eugene for help. We ended up meeting with Mr. Chad Grimion and Nicole Barbie at the Children's Advocacy Center. And I said very candidly, this went to Livingston Parish to die. We have been reporting and calling. I laid everything out on the line for them. I say they have no desire to investigate. And at that time, if it was something else that I needed to do, because I've had very in-depth conversations with Miss Barbie, and I met with Mr.
this is the
Grimion, no
case
one
that's-
else told me to do anything. They didn't say, go here, do that, because I would have done that. I've taken this child to 3 different parishes to make reports in my own car, stayed out to midnight to get her
Well, that's what I'm
protected.
asking. So this is the case that's recent that you're saying is still under investigation.
But
Okay,
it's only,
that's
my
why I'm-
concern is this, it's only under investigation for the perpetrator. This young lady is saying that when she went to state police, if I understand her, that she also made complaints against those law enforcement agencies.
I told them about the sheriff contacting me, and on behalf of, he said it was on behalf of your colleague, Mr. Mack, to ask if his uncle can come and visit with the child that he had been raping, allegedly. The sheriff told me that. I asked the sheriff, I say, Sheriff, are you aware that you're asking the man that has been raping this child, allegedly, to visit with her? He said, no, he was not aware of it. And I said, well, I'm not sure why you're not aware. It's your agency that came out, took the initial report. It's your agency that came out and has had to escort him off our property multiple times, the alleged rapist. We've called your agents out. And so he said that he proceeded to tell me who Mr. John Mack was related to, and he said it was him that asked me to call. That's what the sheriff told me.
I'll give our colleague a courtesy because I didn't know his name was going to come up in this, but I'm going to give him a courtesy call. I'm definitely unaware.
And when we had the conversation at the Children's Advocacy Center, I had conversations with Nicole Barbie because I didn't even want, at this point, I didn't know who to trust. I was terrified. I was trying to protect her because, again, you have a child that you love and that you're trying to protect, telling you that people within this system are going to hurt her if she talks. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm in like the TV at this point because I thought the system would work. That's why we were reporting. That's why we were calling. We went to Washington Parish, we went to Tangi, we reported to we went all over with these reports. It wasn't until I reached out to the trafficking office and the NAACP and Senator Mizell that we got some assistance. And at that time, everyone who couldn't get involved, literally, they couldn't get involved. DCFS told us blatantly that they could not get involved. It was out of their realm. But it wasn't until we got the trafficking office and everybody, these 3 people, Senator Mizell, the NAACP, and the trafficking office, now everybody can get involved. And that's all I wanted from the first place is protect her while you investigate, which is something that you've been saying. Protect the child and investigate. Yes, do your thorough investigation.
Let me say this. This goes past a 48-hour protection. This goes past a week protection. This goes into 7 forensic interviews. This goes into a child being in a safe place because she was with you, right?
Yeah, she's been with
She's
me
been
over
with you and a
year.
half, and this perpetrator is allowed to come and see her. This goes besides
We
protecting.
never allowed him to
I know
come.
you didn't,
Yes,
but I
ma'am.
mean,
But
had
he
you
came
not
several times.
had you not had the strength to just say forget the law, I know right from wrong at this point.
And I just want to say she
No,
was
I'm just- you
also, she was also, and this goes back to policy. Like I want better systems that protect our children.
We have to have better
have to-
systems that protect our children.
Right, but her forensic interviews, her first forensic interviews,
Well,
the rapist took her and her mom.
So wait, she made a. So I know that ain't proper.
No, yeah, but it's the truth.
Look, I'm going Ebonic. I know this can't be proper,
Yeah.
right? I know that when somebody makes an accusation against someone, right, that person's not supposed to bring them in for a forensic interview.
Her mom and her alleged rapist brought her and her sister to the first interviews. They trained, they prepped them in the car on what to say and what not to say. So this is why it is so devastating when I'm the person why I get so, like Eugene is always like, are you okay? I get so angry because I looked this kid in the face and promised her that no one would hurt her again.
And you've gone through this yourself.
And I went through it myself and I wasn't heard. I wasn't heard. And that was 31 years ago.
And Senator Jackson, I'm just gonna say this, and you work with me enough to know I don't mix words.
Right.
DCFS is going to tell you this woman is incredible. But what I'm going to tell you is John Mack is in jail without bond.
They're going to tell me she's not credible. Well, no. If he's in jail without bond, it's credible.
Exactly.
Whatever was being said, and I'm not talking. Look, I know how this goes. I'm a criminal defense lawyer, right? Your client goes to jail without bond. There's some credibility.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
At the end of the day, all I want is for our kids to be protected. I didn't want to sit in this seat. I don't want to be in this platform. That's not what I seek. I work with children because it helps heal me and my hurt. But this put it right in my face that people don't listen to children.
So I understand forensic interviews generally mean that, it's a forensic interview. Was a child taken to a healthcare provider?
She reported when she came to us, we were her 12th facility. She reported that there had been reports from every facility that she had ever been to. It was also reported to the schools that she went to, but this is in a small rural parish in Livingston where the principal or people know the family. And this child was very adamant from day one that the family is very powerful and that nothing was going to happen from day one. She not only shared that sentiment with me, I think she shared it with the senator. She has said from day one, nothing is going to happen. When for me, I felt a sense of hopelessness, and I've shared that with Mr. Collins. When, I was so desperate, I was like, "What am I going to do? I got to keep this child from killing herself," because she said they're going to send me back. I know that. I know they're going to send me back.